Hey guys, what's going on? Happy Thursday, August 31st, 2023. Can't believe that August is just about over, and we're going to head into September now, and the fall and the cold weather and all that. So a little bit discouraged by that philosophically. But anyway, two big updates I wanted to outline for you guys here today. One of them has to do with options in my stock portfolio, some developments there, some thoughts on that. And then the other thing is, way back, several weeks ago, I posted to you guys about contacting New York Life about whole life insurance, disability, long-term care, and finally had a conversation on Monday, the 28th, with the New York Life rep, and was super, super happy with that. So I'll come back around to that in a second. But let me just talk to you guys for a second about the options thing. I've got the Fidelity business brokerage account now that finally got set up and in place. I think it was sometime last week or so. So that's good to go now. Accounts funded, got linked to my business bank account. Everything's good there. And the next thing that I was putting in place, which with Fidelity, when you have a business brokerage account and you want to trade options, you have to go with a wet signature. Like, you can't apply for it online or just click a couple boxes. You got to fill out an application and put a wet signature on it and all that. And I finally accomplished that today and sent that back in to the Fidelity Message Center. So anticipating that within a couple of business days, I should have the ability to trade options. And I just went with the tier 1, tier 2 and 3 for Fidelity. At least that's the way they describe it. You have to have margin. You have to be able to write uncovered options, uncovered calls and puts, and I guess be able to borrow money to cover those things. Well, I just wasn't going there. I just wanted the basic ability to buy equity and index options, specifically going to be buying put options for SPY and QQQQ and that sort of thing. So that's where I am with that, is application submitted, awaiting approval on that. And I anticipate that, let's say by next week sometime, I'll be able to go ahead and buy the first set of contracts if I think I'm ready to do that at that point. The strategy that I think I'm going with here, guys, is, if you've been following me, you know that the stock account really is not for anything but, I don't want to say anything but, it's largely for dividend-paying, boring value stocks. And it's just accumulating shares and taking dividends and reinvesting the dividends and eventually passing that asset on to the next generation. So that's the bulk of the reasoning behind it. Now, as I've been thinking about it and turning it over in my head and knowing that there's something really big coming that's going to be really bad, for the markets here, probably in the near future, I just kept saying to myself, how do I believe that and not put some kind of insurance or protection in against it? And this is the kind of options trading that I did over a decade ago, where I, basically was, or within the last decade, where I was buying put options against SPY, anticipating a significant downturn in the market. And so at the very fringe of this portfolio, I'm talking like no more than a couple of $100 a month. And that's what when I say a small percentage of the portfolio, I mean it, is to just buy some really cheap, way out of the money, short duration options contracts that, if we get a wild swing or two in a given month, those options will move. I've seen this before. I've seen the action on them. It's pretty incredible when you've got, let's say, out of the money put options on SPY, and all of a sudden the market has a down day of 1 or 2 or 3% or something big like that. These options just fly through the roof, and depending on how close they are to expiration, obviously. So for me, it's a bet, it's a gamble I'm willing to take, of saying, hey, I'm going to buy a couple $100 worth of SPY puts, and if things really explode, that couple $100 could become a couple thousand. Or if I really hang on and the market really tanks, it could be as much as, say turning $200 into 20,000. And, that's not out of the realm of possibility when your gains are cubed because of the nature of options and how volatile and how sensitive they can be to these type of events. So for me, the chance to turn $200 into 2,000 to 20,000, being very heuristic here, obviously, but the chance to do that means that, let's say I make a trade like that, and now there's a couple thousand or a few thousand or several $1,000s on hand. Now that money goes back in and buys more shares to produce more dividends, to buy more shares at reinvestment, and so on and so forth. So the options plays feed the larger purpose of the portfolio. That's the strategy. That's the approach that I'm taking here. Anything more than a couple $100 a month, I can't stomach it, because I'll just look at that and be like, well, I could have taken several $100s or a few $1,000s or whatever the number is and bought more shares, right? Like why bother then, right? So I think, when you can take a very tiny little bit of money that you don't care about losing, whatever that number is for you, and you can say, okay, I'm willing to wager that, because that's what it is. It's a bet. I'm willing to wager that, and then if I win, I have the discipline to plow that money back into the portfolio. I think that's a viable approach. That's a reasonable, viable approach for me. So the other thing I wanted to update you guys on is New York Life. I had to badger them a little bit on Twitter with a couple of direct messages, but to their credit, they answered me there when I had not been contacted by an agent back in July. I think is when I first filled out the online inquiry with them. So I badgered them in August a little bit on Twitter, and then finally, they said, hey, resubmit and somebody will definitely contact you. I resubmitted and somebody definitely contacted me. And the agent that contacted me, Nazleen Tharani is her name, had a conversation with her on Monday the 28th. Super discussion with her. Felt zero pressure, felt zero salesmanship. She answered questions, she explained concepts, she kind of theorized a little bit with me about what I'm trying to accomplish here with the whole life and the disability and the long-term care. Cleared a few things up for me in that initial discussion. We pivoted to, hey, here's a bunch of material that goes into much more depth that I have a chance to digest on my own. I've got it all printed out, ready for the holiday weekend to look through it. And then we scheduled a follow-up discussion for 7 September where I can go over any questions and thoughts and concerns that I have with her at that time. So I will let you guys know how that goes and where this all kind of ends up. I already have term life insurance, $2 million of that through USAA. Honestly, after the inflation that kicked off in 2022, I don't think it's nearly enough. It's just not gonna produce the desired effect from my standpoint at this point. Now, whole life insurance is not going to fill the entire gap, because I'm sitting here wishing that I had gotten $4 or $5 million of term life, to be totally frank with you. And I'm not going to get that much of whole life insurance. I mean, it's just, premium's going to be through the roof. I'm too old, from the health perspective on this, it's just going to impact the premium too much. But I think getting some whole life in place, that with the dividends being reinvested into the whole life policy and buying paid up additions, adding to the insurance over time, that sort of thing, plus putting other types of insurances in place, disability, in case something, God forbid, happens to me and I can't provide for my family, long-term care, for the end of the road type of stuff, when it's like, am I going to go into a home? Are we going to go into a home? Or are we going to be able to stay at home and have the care that we'd like to have at home? Those questions are things that I think are finally top of mind for me, and they just require being addressed at this point. So it's really going to come down to affordability for me. I know that all three products are desirable at this point. I don't think any one of them is something I'm going to completely turn away from. The question is, what's the right mix? What's the bang for the buck that I can produce on a monthly basis and how much of any one of these things can I reasonably afford in combination with the other two things. What's the calibration? Should it be mostly going towards whole life insurance with some disability and long-term care? Is it going to be kind of an even peanut butter spread? Those specifics, those granular tactical details are really what I have to kind of figure out at this point, and really take a hard look at and see how it affects the budget every month. Obviously, there's no point to, putting a policy in place that, I can't financially keep up with and I have to forfeit at some point or something like that. So I will definitely keep you guys updated on this. I'm excited about it because I think it finishes off that ground floor defensive layer of the financial portfolio where, there's cash reserves, there's term life insurance right now, and that sort of thing. But I really like the infinite banking possibilities that go with whole life, borrowing from your own policy, paying yourself back, that sort of thing. And then I do think disability and long-term care, as difficult as it is to imagine or think about those things and why I might need them, there's going to come a day where I really believe it's going to be like, damn, I really should have done something about those two things. So, like I said, guys, after 7 September, I'll have more of an update, more to share with you guys on which direction I went with this, and whether there's any particularly insightful moments that I can share with you in terms of exploring these New York Life policies and products. Okay, so thanks for listening, guys. Until next time. In the meantime, guys, I hadn't really done too many Facebook Lives lately because I was kind of focusing on the short form content on YouTube and TikTok, as well as here on Facebook Reels. But every once in a while, I just need the long form situation like this to kind of get a bunch of these details out to you guys. So if you guys have any questions, comments, feedback, please drop me a line below. I would love to hear from you, and we'll definitely get back to you. So thanks a lot, guys. Hope everybody has a great holiday weekend, and we'll talk to you again in September. Thanks, guys.